Hello, I'm Derek Wheatley and welcome to episode 24 of the Wheatley podcast. As always, thank you very much for your support during the week. Thank you to Anita for last week's episode. It was very interesting. A lot of people tuned in to have a listen, and we're probably surprised with the amount of stuff she's done in her life. I was as well, because she's like same age as me, and I've done half of that stuff, I'd say. Also, we returned to the live segment last night. And it was good. We had the usual crew who tuned in, which was great. There was a big streak of kind of vanity on my part. I played a song I wrote 2 weeks ago, or in the last 2 weeks, and it was okay. It was fine, but I don't think I really needed to do it. But it was a bit of crack. And sure, where else do I'm not going to go down to the pub with my guitar and play it, so I might as well throw it on there. Anyway, we'll get stuck in. I want to introduce my guest. He is a pain and movement specialist, and he is also the go-to guy for all of the people in Fusion. And his name is Kieran Mcnally. How are you, Kieran?
I'm great, Eric.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, thanks for coming on the show. We'll start as usual with our short history of your upbringing, please.
Yeah, I was actually born in London. I get a bit of stick for that. We moved over here when I was 2. My parents, a lot of people have probably known my family because they ran Stella Maris Nursing Home.
All right.
So I grew up there. I had about 24 grannies.
Yeah.
And from that, had a normal childhood, hard-working parents. Once I got to secondary school, I just kind of lost interest in school. Never really applied myself.
Right.
So my parents probably thought it was the best thing for me to do was join the army.
Yeah.
And it definitely was the best thing. So I trained up in Dundalk. I spent 5 years over there, and I had 2 trips overseas, went to Liberia and Kosovo, and then I got transferred down to Athlone. And after that, I think it was 2010, I decided to go travelling for a year. And then when I came back from Australia, I thought, right, I'm actually don't want to be in the army anymore. So I started to kind of look at my options then, and I was always interested in sport, so I undertook a neuromuscular therapy course up in Galway, and things just spiraled from there. Just wanted to learn more, and then here I am today.
Nice. The second question is always, when did you first become aware of mental health?
Yeah, I mean, people always talk about it, and people always say, mental health people are becoming more aware of mental health, and sometimes I just think that's just what people say, but I don't think people actually really get it.
Yeah.
And it was only, I suppose, myself when I was leaving the army to start. When I thought, right, I'm going to set up my own business. Then I started to feel very, very stressed about it. I started to feel very anxious, and I didn't really know what it meant. Okay, I just had these feelings. So I went to the doctor anyway, and the doctor said, "Oh yeah, you're suffering from depression." And I knew I wasn't suffering from depression, but I said, "No, I don't think I am." And he goes, "No, anxiety is like a form of depression." And I just didn't. I felt it was a very umbrella term that he was giving me.
Yeah.
So that was from my own personal perspective, that I actually felt, what mental health was about, because when I felt it myself.
Yeah. So you would have said, obviously he was saying it was depression and anxiety, but it's not true that anxiety is. But where do you think the anxiety came from then?
Just the worry of failure, I think.
Okay.
I think it was because I felt I had a lot to lose, because I don't know, we grew up in a society that, you need to save up money, you need to get yourself a house, and then you need to pay off your mortgage. And I bought a house at 22, and that was fine. Everything was good. I had the government wage coming in every Wednesday that was covering that. And then it was a case of, right, I'm leaving a comfortable job, and the fear of the unknown. Am I going to be good enough? Will I be able to succeed? And if I don't succeed, will people laugh at me? I'll become a failure. And you start to overthink these things. And and it's only really in recent years when I started to understand a little bit more about the brain and how the brain works, what was actually happening. And I was just living in my fight or flight mode, which is your sympathetic nervous system, as you know. And I was just constantly, like, that's why I was never sleeping, because I was going to bed and I was producing chemicals as if I was going for a run while I'm in bed. And that's what it was all about. And then from that, then it was just the overthinking side of things, and that's where it was driven from. And it was just looking at myself. What will people think?
That's true. That's a huge part of it, really. And I think what does help, and I speak to my mother about this, what does help with getting older, you're obviously someone who looks into these things, but even for someone who doesn't look into these things, but as they're getting older and they're getting the perspective on the world changes, and they realize that people aren't looking at them when they're in the shop or whatever it is, and that kind of eases a little bit, when you were in, just to go back to the army, like when you were in the army, when you were in those places, those kind of war zones, did you have anxiety problems then?
No, never. I didn't have any. No, I had no. There was no fear. Like, I never felt in danger out there. Genuinely, it doesn't matter if it's a physical danger or an emotional or psychological threat that you're feeling. Your body's going to respond in the same way. It's just going to go straight into that fight or flight mode. But no, from a physical point of view, I never felt in danger. It was just, honestly, it was just the overthinking side of things.
I know that feeling very well, like that overthinking side of things. So can you explain to the people that don't know and have never even heard of maybe the profession, what a pain and movement specialist is?
Yeah, it's not really a profession though.
Okay.
It's kind of just a label I've kind of given myself.
All right.
The reason being is because I've kind of studied pain science in depth, and I have a good understanding of what influences pain. And most people think pain is influenced by structural changes or tissue damage, and actually, believe it or not, pain is actually poorly linked to tissue damage. People think that if I pain, I must be damaged in some sort. So that was the reason I give myself the pain side of things, and the movement side of things is just because I studied under a guy called Gary Ward, who's a movement specialist from the UK. And I really bought into his philosophy. It's just about basically getting each joint moving in 3 planes of motion, but in relation to the whole body. So an ankle isn't an ankle. An ankle moves not just for an ankle moves in relation to the knee. An ankle moves in in relation to the hip. So it's a global movement system rather than just looking at an ankle as an ankle. So that's where I got the movement side of things. So I just threw that together, pain and movement, because I see myself as a specialist in the area. So it worked. It sounded good. And I just went with it.
Well, it does sound good though, because because I will go into my experience with you, right? But like I said, we were just having a quick chat there. It's the whole we've been given terms all our lives and professions that we should know, and whether it's like physio, psychiatrist, we can go right through all these professions. And when we come across something that is completely new to us, but it's something that is explanatory in its 2 words, we might be a little bit worried about it in the first place, because we haven't been fed it all our lives, right? So when somebody comes to you who's seen your thing on Facebook, right, seen your page on Facebook, whatever it is, and they come to you, they sit down in the room. Your breakdown of that is pretty, it explains it right, the ankle that leads to each thing. So when I went in, so we're going to give you a bit of a case study for the people who don't know what it is, okay? So I went in and I had a back problem. Martin told me to go over to you, right? You checked it out. You made me do some movements that aren't movements that you do in everyday life. you know. So obviously I won't be able to do them on the podcast because nobody's going to be able to see it, but I was jutting my hip out to a certain direction, or when I was lying on the floor, I was moving my foot to the left and to the right, and you could tell from that what the problem was. Now, you diagnosed it as a nerve problem, right? And I know this was a while ago, so it's not that you've loads of patients, so it's not easy for you to remember. So when you gave me a run of movements to do at home every day, you even put it on a video for me. Actually, I still have it on my phone because I still get a bit of a flare up. Now, there's people coming in with, back problems, knee problems, ankle problems. Is there a fear of people, like if they train while they have an injury, okay? Now, I'm not talking about broken anything, about, say, the nerve in my lower back, and people will have a fear of that. Would you recommend that people train, but under a certain kind of regime from a trainer? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a long question, but
yeah, it's a complicated question because, I wouldn't. If somebody's in pain, I say never train through pain.
Yeah.
But train towards pain.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're suffering with pain, obviously you don't want to just say just don't acknowledge the pain and train through, because pain is communication. It's your body's way of communicating with you, trying to make a change. Pain is motivation to change.
Yeah.
Okay. So if your body's creating pain, it's trying to communicate with you. So the last thing you want to do is discard that information and just train through it.
Yeah.
Okay. So it depends on, I wish I could give you a better answer, but it depends on the person. It depends on the injury. I always try to encourage movement that doesn't cause pain.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I like to say, look, I don't mind you flirting with pain once it's done in a slow and controlled way, but never train through pain.
Yeah.
And certainly I wouldn't be doing anything that's aggressive through pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because pain is generated when your nervous system feels threatened. And that's the only time your body will produce pain.
Yeah.
When it feels that there's a perceived threat or an actual threat. Okay?
Yeah.
You can have tissue damage and not have pain.
Okay.
Once your nervous system doesn't feel threatened. And the reverse is true as well. You can have pain and no tissue damage. But the main thing I like to say is just listen to your body and see, listen to it. Why is your body trying to communicate with you? And if it's obviously producing pain, well, then it's trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that I just thought of this question, actually. I'm very proud of it. Bit of vanity again. Do you think you're growing up, in the situation with your parents in Stelmaris, drove you towards a profession that cared for people?
I don't really know. Maybe it's in the genes because, my mother was a nurse and my two sisters are nurses. It could be something that's in the genes, that you'd be maybe more empathetic by nature, because you need to be empathetic in the job. You can't be. It's a difference between empathy and sympathy. You can't be feeling sorry for people, but you have to see where they're coming from. So I suppose if I was more empathetic by nature, maybe I'm in the right job for it.
Yeah, and you we spoke obviously as you were treating me for my back, and you were very good at explaining the pain, but you gave me a book, and I thought I had it because you sent it to me PDF. And it was quite a short book, but you gave me this book to read, and it was so good at breaking down pain, and I mean, it didn't take. I read a bit, here and there, but it didn't take too much of my mental, arithmetic or whatever you want to call it, athleticism, to really get it. What was the name of that book? It
was actually called Explain Pain, and that book was written for the client.
Oh, right.
Okay, it actually wasn't written for the clinician. No, there is a kind of a book that's basically Explain Pain on steroids for the academic, I suppose, the person that's actually trying to educate themselves on it. But that book in particular, that book honestly just answers so many questions for me. Because for me personally, when I started this out, and I was just, given rubs, and I was, doing some exercise with people, and people weren't getting better. I used to take that as not a personal insult, but I'd actually feel, that this is my fault. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
All right. And then once I read this book, and then I started to study more on the area, the neuroscience, and understand, what pain is and how it's influenced. So how it's influenced. I started to understand, okay, so pain is not just influenced by physical issues. It's influenced by a thing called a biopsychosocial model. So it's everything from a biological point of view, so from a physical point of view, a psychological point of view, and a social point of view. So your environment.
Yeah.
All of those three areas influence pain. And it doesn't matter if let's say you fell down and broke your ankle. You would say, okay, 90% of the pain is generated from the broken ankle.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the meaning of what a broken ankle is, or let's say you had, a brother that broke his ankle, and, just let's say that he never walked properly again, that's going to influence how much pain you have, because you have seen that, and then this is going to generate fear, which is going to amplify the amount of pain that is produced.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's just, a major trauma. From a physical point of view, your pain is actually going to be influenced from different areas as well.
Yeah. I found fascinating, actually, because I learned so much from that book that I had no clue what it was, or the stuff that was in it beforehand. The whole thing of having pain in a certain area. So again, I'm just going to use myself because it's easier. So the nerve pain in my lower, it's the left side of my lower back, right? So I wouldn't say it produced a limp, but it certainly produced a thought on my head that maybe a limp would help. Do you know what I mean? So as a protective thing. So sometimes then I'd find myself not only with a slight kind of exaggeration to my left side when I'm walking, but also almost like like my upper back was arching a bit. So there was this protective shell coming around. But then what I found was my right hip was starting to hurt because if I'm off balance to the left, then it was coming. And all of these things and those breakdown in that book were fascinating to me, because I learned stuff that it's not basic stuff at all. But when it's broken down, and even with some little diagrams in the book and stuff, when it's broken down into that case, I thought it was fascinating,
Yeah, they use a lot of analogies in that book, and I think that's how it makes it so much easier to understand. But it's going back to what you were saying there with the how your posture had changed, and that's your body's solution to the pain. So people might look at you and say, geez, Derek, you're out of line. And that's a horrible phrase that I absolutely hate, because that leads people to think that pain is all about the structure, and that if you're out of line, that's why you're not in pain. But the human body is very adaptable. It constantly changes. You might lie down on the table today and somebody might look at you and say, oh, you have one leg longer than the other. But then the next day you will get up, and maybe you trained that night, and maybe that hip is one hip, the opposite hip is a bit tighter. And then you jump up in the bed, and then the other leg is longer. But that, for somebody that doesn't know, they leave there thinking, I have one leg longer than the other, because they're going to look up to somebody that is a professional, and they're going to believe what they say, and then they'll carry that with them, and this will be part of their identity. Hi, I'm Derek, I've one leg longer than the other. Then they live up to that, and sometimes it just takes for people to understand that that pain isn't all about structure, that they'll start to move a little bit easier.
It's a complicated system in general, the body is, but it is always a joy when someone can break it down for you without you having to dig into these academic books, because they're impossible for I'd say a layman to kind of break apart. We'll just get like Martin's little lad in, because he'd be giving out. Fusion Training Centre, Monkstand Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. I was chatting to Martin about that advert. I think people will probably be getting sick of it at this point. This is the 24th reading, so we might change it up sometime in the future. So Kieran, you're in the middle of writing a book.
Yeah.
Why and how is it going?
It's actually going well.
Yeah.
I actually had planned on writing it at some point way into the future. I was saying, right, maybe in about 2 years I'll write it. And then this all happened with the lockdown. And I just literally one day I said, right, I'm going to start this. And I wrote 1,000 words straight away.
Oh.
I hired somebody in America, just a publisher that, you know, is in the industry. He's a physio by trade, but he also helps people write books. So he's kind of guided me through it. And also I felt I'd be accountable if I paid somebody to do it.
Yeah.
To you know, I'd have to do it then if I paid somebody.
Yeah.
So it's going well.
Yeah.
I'm on the last chapter.
Oh.
Of the first edit.
Okay.
Now I scanned over chapter 1 again, and I was like, oh God, I'm definitely not putting that in. You know, so I'm gonna have to go second and third edit. I think I'll have to do. But the reason I wrote it was I just kind of wanted people to understand my approach a bit better. I got fed up with the same stories coming in over and over and over again as regards to injuries and what people have been told by doctors. You know, the most common things, like you have a back of 70-year-old, you have a bulging disc, and there's a lot of kind of myths out there about that.
Yeah.
You know, if again going back to if a doctor tells you have a back of the 70-year-old, you're going to leave there acting as if your back is crumbling away, and then you're going to start moving differently, and you know you're going to start bracing your back, and all these things actually make pain worse. You know, so I just wanted to get all this down on paper, and I wanted to understand, help people understand my approach, and then you know what influences pain, and then how they can help themselves resolve pain, because I do get, you know, inquiries from all around Ireland, and not everyone can travel. So it's a way of you know, identifying what is involved in their pain, in their story, figuring it out for themselves, and then there's a solution, or at least at the very least what they'll get out of it is a different understanding of, you know, how their body works.
I think it's a great idea, and the availability of books now, in the sense of you don't have to go to a shop to buy a book. You can get it on Kindle or wherever you get your books from. But also like you say, I can travel to see it any time, and other people just can't, like they're too far away or whatever. To be able for like I talk about the book that you gave me helped me so much. Something like that, the idea of, you say, of somebody who tells, you know, you've a back of a 70-year-old, and all of a sudden they just stop using their back, and then it's a disaster. You know, one disaster leads to another, and that. For you to bring out a book would be, I think, it'd be very interesting, and to explain to people that it's not the you know, you're not finished. Yeah. You know, it's not over.
And like, you often see these people, like they're like 70 or 80 year old. My mother, right, is 70. I won't tell her, say her age, right?
60.
Right. She started CrossFit. I don't know, do you know my mum, Derek?
I might do.
Yeah, she started CrossFit up there, and she was flat out. Martin says that, you know, she always up for doing anything. She'd be squatting, she'd be deadlifting, and some of the older women that would be a lot younger than her, they would be, you know, looking up to her. Yeah. And, you know, she was, you know, trying chin ups, she was using the band, and like, honestly, and she never really trained before in her life. So, like, to say that, you know, as you get older, you know, you should stop. Yeah. You know, and just having been told you have the back of a 70-year-old is kind of just an insult to all 70-year-olds out there as well. Yeah, true. You know, but also another thing that annoys me is, you know, manual handling courses, because they have ruined so many people out there as well, because now maybe it's not on the curriculum how it's on paper how you're supposed to teach it, but the way it's taught, and I've taken many manual handling courses, and I always get people that are in the office or in the clinic to me, have you done a manual handling course? Yes. Okay. And then I just get them to pick up something, and they'll always pick it up. Well, 80% of the time they'll pick it up with dropping the hips, and I would be getting them to pick up a little wedge on the ground. Yeah, you know, as the weight of a pencil, and because they've taken a manual handling course, they think you should never bend your back, and what that does is that your body will be very strong in that position where you're dropping your hips and your back is straight, but weak in a forward flexed spine position, and their body has actually no experience in with a forward flexed spine picking anything up. And then let's say that they're rushing around and they have to pick something up, or they're trying to get the kids out to school, and they bend down and pick up a school bag, and they put themselves in a forward flexed position where their body is just not used to being in. Their nervous system may feel threatened in that position, and it can produce pain to get you out of there.
Okay.
All right? Because again, pain is only produced when your body is, under potential threat or actual threat. So, and if you have previous back injury, you're more susceptible for pain if you bend over and you're not used to bending over as well.
I did. You just reminded me that you did talk to me about that, and it was the idea of, I think you said it to me at the time, if you've seen people, out in the street pick up a bit of paper in the way you'd pick up a heavy box or something like that, and it's that the way we're drilled into thinking that's the way to do it.
I mean, that's it. You're drilled into thinking. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Sit up straight. Everyone thinks that things should be perfectly level, perfectly in line, and it's not realistic. In order for things to be perfectly level on both sides, you would have to do the exact same amount of work on both sides forever. Otherwise, it can't be. And with manual handling courses, they're brought out to protect the employer. They're not. They don't care about you. They're just, I don't want to get sued, so I'm going to create a course that teaches people how to lift, and in case they hurt their back, I'm not going to get sued.
I'm covered.
There's no real science behind it. And the science is weak.
It's interesting.
You should be moving as many ways as possible. Get your back strong in as many ways as possible. I call it bulletproofing yourself. So that means that if you're ever put in a position where you're running around, you're trying to get stuff out of the house, and you actually bend in a position that wouldn't be the norm to pick up something, it's not a shock to the body. Your tissues are able to handle it. They have experience. They're strong there, and you're less likely to get injured as a result.
My posture is very bad, so I'm prepared for anything.
Well, again, that's the thought process. My posture is very bad. Like, posture has been debunked as well. There's posture does not dictate pain either. It's all about movement. If you're sitting down at a desk all day, Derek, and then you stand up and you continue, you stay in that type of posture and you never move out of that, then you have a higher chance of getting pain, because if you ever move into a position that you're not used to being moved in, well, then you're in trouble because of that, because you've no experience. Your tissues aren't used to being in those positions.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures of these futuristic pictures, and the idea is that I think it was like 2030, but they say like what the youth will look like in 2030 because how they slouch in front of video games and how their heads are down and looking at their phones and stuff.
But did you ever see the picture of everyone outside a bank in the 60s? They're all reading the paper with their heads down into the paper.
It's a good point.
Again, there's been studies done on text neck, that's what it's called, and there's no evidence out there that text neck causes pain. Again, it's all about movement. I think it's something that should be brought into schools just to teach people how to move, and certainly into companies, big offices and corporations. They're getting ergonomics in to teach people how to sit and keep as the least amount of stress on the body. What they should be teaching people is how to move and move better more often, because if you're moving better, because we're not designed to be sitting down in front of a computer. We're designed to be lifting trees, sleeping in caves, going out to catch our food, and then all of a sudden in the space of 100 years we've stopped what took maybe arguably 1 million years of evolution to get us to move like this, and then in 100 years we've stopped doing that. And that's just not enough time for evolution to catch up.
And when you talk about things that need to be introduced to schools, and I've talked about mental health, better awareness of mental health in schools. Can you talk to me a little bit about, just because we were chatting just the other day about mental health in relation to pain and how it can affect anxiety, things like that, even depression.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it can kind of go both ways. Like if you're anxious, that can sensitize the system, and if you have an injury or an old injury, that can generate, your nervous system can generate pain as a result of that. But also, if you injure yourself, or if you have pain, then your life can change. And especially people that are suffering with chronic pain for long periods of time, they start to self-isolate, and that can affect their mental health then as well, because human beings were social animals. And like, you can only look at the prisoners when they're put into the isolation, they go mental. There's so much evidence behind that, that's just, it really is torture, because we're social animals. So if you are in pain, and people tend to socially isolate because they might feel embarrassed that they're in pain, or they can't do things that they used to do, they might feel socially excluded because, if they're suffering with chronic pain, they don't want to go down to, a family gathering in case, they want people helping them out.
A burden, kind of.
Yeah, they might feel like they're a burden. So they self-isolate. And then that will affect their mental health. Their anxiety levels will go through the roof. They'll stop moving. Their moods will change. They become depressed. And then they get caught in a rut. And then obviously, if you're in that frame of mind, generally you're not going to eat very well. You're not going to be looking after yourself. So like, it's just a domino effect of things that are, that are just going to make your life a bit more miserable. And then just look like, and let's say that person just comes in to just any clinic, and they're told that they're out of line. Oh, you're in pain because you're out of line. Then that's just another thing that they're taking on board. Another negative that they're holding into them. And again, that's another threat to the body. And the more threats they are, the more your body will produce pain. You remove the threat, you remove the pain.
Excuse me. And that whole thing of anxiety is one of those things. If you do have an injury in something, and you want to, if you get an injury from work, but you keep having to do the same thing over and over again, and the anxiety increases because you think, well, this is just going to get worse and worse. If they don't know that they need to move a different way, or hold a different posture, or whatever it is, if they don't have the anxiety comes back to them. When I went to you, people need to be given, if they are in pain, like even if people in chronic pain, will say, if they're given some sort of positive program to do, we'll say that you gave me a program to move, get the particular part of me moving, that's in itself is a lift, and it's a burden off the shoulder. And like what you said, if someone's coming in and telling you like you're off, you're not aligned properly, that's going to upset you more. So the positive approach from yourself will get people thinking positively, and also moving positively, and it's massive, really.
100%, Derek. Like, honestly, that is just like, it's just, people love to know there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now if you come in with a hamstring injury, if you're playing sport, there's no need to go this in depth with it. But if you have a recurrence of an injury and you don't know why it's happening, and every time you train you feel pain, well, then you might start to constantly rethink that your body's giving away on you, and your body's letting you down, and that your body's not strong enough. And if you constantly have this thought process, then you're just going to start losing confidence all the time. But if you just understand why it's happening, and then you're given a specific program to rehabilitate yourself, and also understand that yes, pain is part of the process, and you will feel pain here, and it's okay to feel pain here, well, then you won't fear your pain as much. Because if you fear your pain, you become anxious every time you feel pain. And again, that's going to put you in your fight or flight mode, which is going to amplify pain again. It's because you'll be just in a vicious circle. So giving people like a positive output or a positive look on their injury, so they understand what's happening, and so they don't fear their pain, well, then that's just going to be better for the whole rehabilitation.
That leads me into something else that we wanted to talk about. And actually, John is covered for this one as well. But I came into you with a sore neck, and I've sore neck years. You know, it's just I told you about it. But the people who don't know, it's just like a constant kind of tightness to it. It always seems very tense and stuff. So I told Kieran about it. He gave it a couple of rubs actually. You know, but you knew I was doing jiu-jitsu obviously at that time. So can you tell everybody what it led you to believe?
Well, I just felt that, like, I don't know a whole lot about jiu-jitsu, right? But I just know that your neck would be, you could say, in a compromised position many times, okay? And when I look at it sometimes, jiu-jitsu, and I'd be like, God, that just looks so, I feel uneasy from looking at that. All right, so I felt because of your previous, and you're constantly feeling pain in your neck, you would have a lack of confidence in your neck.
Yeah.
You would also have an expectation that this is going to hurt. So you told me that anytime you were in these positions, you were tensing up.
Yeah.
Okay? And again, that's your body's response to feeling threatened. And your body's going to, you know, also doesn't want you in that position.
Yeah.
So how is it going to get you out of that position? It's going to produce pain. Because remember, pain is motivator to change.
Yeah.
It's trying to, your nervous system doesn't feel safe there, so it's going to produce pain to get you out of there. So what we had to do with that was certainly think outside the box, because I had really no experience at that time with jiu-jitsu. So you had to educate me on, you know, what moves you would be in. So we had to create moves or create exercises that would be realistic to jiu-jitsu to get you feeling strong in that position. Because if you feel strong at that position, then you're going to feel safer. And if you feel safer, then your nervous system then is going to feel less threatened. Because that's what I'm always after. I'm not after the pain. I'm after, why is your nervous system producing the pain?
Yeah.
I'm not after the pain itself. I'm just after what's influencing the pain.
Yeah.
So in that case, it was a bit of strength and conditioning on your neck in these obscure positions.
Yeah.
There's no point in giving you strength exercises when you're standing up, because that's not relevant. You know, that's not, because it makes no sense when you're lying down. So we had to get you strong in that position. Inadvertently, that was helping your psychology. That was making you better from a psychological perspective as well, because you were getting strong in those positions where you could say that you were compromised. And the two areas together then, and also the fact that you started to understand why you were in pain as well. And then you felt yourself then maybe not tensing up as much as a result of that, because you weren't as threatened.
Exactly, like I could relax the shoulders almost, like draw them down a bit. And it was more so for that anyway. It was more psychological than what we were doing physically. Like with the nerve in the back, it was psychological too, obviously, but a lot of it was to do with the physical movements I had to do when I came home, you know. Yeah,
with the I think it was your sciatic nerve, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And going back to one of your first questions about training through that, like if you've an irritated sciatic nerve, well then the last thing you want to do then is, you know, irritate it further, because your body will just flare it up again.
Yeah.
So the approach there would have been trying to get that nerve gliding better, get your hip moving again in a safe and a controlled way, and then starting to teach the nerve to be able to manage tension better, and then just build up a little bit of strength and conditioning. So yes, that was a very more physical approach, but because of the physical approach, again, when you started to see the breaks in the sciatic nerve, it wasn't flaring up as much. Then you started to regain confidence in it.
Exactly.
So again, it's always inadvertently I'm not sitting you down and, you know, asking me, you know, like a psychologist and trying to rewire your thoughts. It's, you know, inadvertently I'm helping your psychology. Yeah,
and that it's helping in many more ways away from your your office then, because what happens is if I was to miss training for 2 weeks because I had a sore back or a sore neck, whatever it be, that affects my mental health then, because that's my my fun, like, you know, any exercise, we all like a bit of exercise and we get stuff from it, but it's also the social aspect of it as well. So if I was to you know, if Martin hadn't sent me over to you, I may have started to miss weeks here and there because of it, because I wasn't educated enough to move my body, or to even know that I could do something like that. It was like that thing going back to the 70-year-old back. my back is sore, I'm going to have to just sit down for a few weeks, and that's that, you know. But that's not going to help it anyway, because like you said, further down the line, 2 or 3 weeks, I might get in a turtle position, which is a position I use a lot, and then my back goes again, and then we're back to square one, like, you know.
I had a client actually that gave up gymnastics because she had a nerve pain in her arm and her shoulder, and she just gave it up altogether, and she lived for it. She loved every day. She'd love to be down there, you know, doing, you know, gymnastic stuff. So I don't know, jumping and landing and cartwheels and whatever else to be doing. But she left, and then again she stopped doing the things that, you know, gave her meaning, and then as a result of that, then she was just, you know, her mood changed. You know, she wasn't able to, you know, do whatever hobbies that you know, she enjoyed. But obviously the treatment wasn't you know, just getting her back to go into gymnastics again. But what we did say that would help her is just to get down and get involved in it again. So even similar to you, Derek, like even if you were just, you know, watching or getting down and just doing some moves,
exactly,
rather than just give it up altogether. Because giving it up altogether, you don't have to be doing, you know, full contact. You don't have to be doing, in her case, you don't have to be doing backflips and things like that. But just to be involved and not just give it up completely. It's just very important. It
is, and I will commend Martin just once for what he does in jiu-jitsu, but I've seen him a lot in CrossFit, because like we talked about earlier on, little niggles and stuff that people have where they feel that they can't run around do laps around the car park, but they can go on the bike, or you know what I mean, like just those minor little adjustments that Martin can tell them helps a lot. And like you say, they still get to go in and meet the people and have a bit of crack, and, you know, see someone getting a personal best and joining in on those kind of things.
Absolutely,
it's great. Listen, before we get on to something a bit lighter, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, just you can email me at info@kieranmcnally.net. On my website's kieranmcnally.net, and then you can call me on 086 733 8963.
And he's on Facebook as well.
On Facebook there as well, yeah.
What I'll do is on Wednesday or Thursday, I'll put Kieran's Facebook page on our page, or John will do that probably, because I'm useless at those things. So when you aren't helping people with their pain, what do you like to do?
I actually took up tennis again.
Did you?
I took up tennis because since the lockdown started, you were able to play tennis because it was 1v1, and other side you were able to socially distance. I used to play years ago. I'll throw this out there that my cousin won Wimbledon in 2012.
No way.
Yeah, he was the first Brit to win it in like 70 years or something.
Oh, you posted the other day.
Yeah,
I had no idea what that was.
Yeah, that was my first cousin.
So that's what the parish thing meant, because you were born in London now. It's all coming together now.
It is.
And that's, did you play with, when did you start playing? When you were very young?
Oh yeah, I played probably just all through my teens, and then I gave up then when I was about maybe 20, maybe when I joined the army around that time. I probably was then, and I just gave it up because I started playing football again, and that kind of really took over. I pretty much train every day for football, whether it be in the gym or, you know, down at my club.
And what club do you play for?
I play at Willow Park.
Right.
Yeah, so
I can't boo them. I don't know anything about London's football scene.
I know we play up in the Dublin League, Leinster Senior League.
Oh, do you?
We're going okay, yeah. We're third in the league at the minute. So.
And you're just like you were telling me, you just played this morning.
Yeah, we played this morning. Yeah, just a friendly.
Yeah.
The season doesn't start now till next week, so Sunday morning we're home to Dublin bus.
You delighted to get back into it?
Yeah, like, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't miss it.
Okay.
And then once I was picked up to tennis, but I actually didn't really do anything. Didn't really play any football at all, and I didn't miss it one bit. And then when I went back down, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to get back at it. So I've been flat out training maybe the last 6 weeks, and feeling fit now.
Good.
And looking forward to next week.
What position did you play?
I'm a bit of you don't really follow football, do you?
No, I do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a James Milner that you can throw me anywhere.
John O'Shea, what is it?
John O'Shea, yeah.
Hey, look.
Yeah.
They're all players.
Yeah, so I play. I like the middle, and I also, when I'm fit enough, I don't mind playing left wing.
That's a tough position.
left wing, especially when you're 35.
Yeah, that's actually true, because we always forget, don't, well, people who don't play, and I did play for Swords Celtic, and we were obviously in the Dublin North League, but I was on the bench the whole time. But when I played, I'd always wanted to be a right back, and then I played right back, and I was like, that's very hard. It's awful.
Yeah.
But when you're 35 right now, and there's 18-year-olds playing against you.
Yeah.
You forget that, like, you know.
That's why I have to do the extra training.
Yeah.
There's plenty of young lads trying to break into the side, and I was like, right, no, not now. So, not now. I'm not ready to give up. So I do the extra training just to try and, you know, stay ahead of the game a bit at least anyway, and try to give myself another year or two before I step down a bit.
You could head to Wimbledon then, but
yeah.
I can't believe your cousin won Wimbledon. That's mad.
I did,
that's great.
And you know what? Like, is amazing about it is that they never won a title ever, and he was way down rankings. He was like 125 in the world in the doubles.
That's crazy.
And it was only a few days before that he decided to play with Frederick Nielsen.
Oh wow!
And then they end up winning it.
That is mad, isn't it?
A crazy story. Honestly, it's mental.
Good on them. I mean, that's something to tell the kids, I suppose.
It is, yeah.
I suppose I got to bring this up. So Liverpool.
Yeah.
You're a Liverpool man.
I've been known to support Liverpool.
Been known to cheer them on. Are you thrilled with the way that's finally arrived?
Yeah. All my friends are United fans, and one Arsenal fan that actually.
Oh, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, he backs me up a little bit.
Yeah, well, you'll get that. Yeah.
I do. Yeah, but they're giving me off the stick, and it's actually driving me mad. You know, when the null and void thing, I just actually felt sick. I felt sick to my stomach.
I'd say most Liverpool fans were just because imagine.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about? And I know the answer to this because I probably feel the same as you. What do you think of this whole like asterisk next to the win?
Well, no, there is no action. There won't. No, but if there was points per game, or if they handed him the title, they were going to give the asterisks. But no, it's going to be just normal.
But even if they did that, right? What were they ahead before the lockdown? It was
25 points.
I mean, there's no asterisks next to 25 points.
I know,
But I know.
But do you know what? It's just all kind of bragging rights, and it's just something that mostly the United fans just like to take it away from you a little bit.
I know they've won so many though. They need to just chill out a bit and let.
Do you
know what I mean? They're just
but they're not sound. No Man United fans are sound.
they're the ones. I always back when Arsenal, it's a long time ago, when they were competitive, and obviously it was Arsenal United for the league for a while there. We used to go into the pubs, and do you remember the game where Van Nistelrooy hit the bar with the penalty, and the fight in Old Trafford?
Oh yeah,
they were jumping on.
Yeah.
And I was like, me and one other Arsenal fan who was sitting over the other side of the bounty, and the place was packed. There was nothing better that happened to me, even winning the league later that year, was when the final whistle went and they all left.
Yeah.
And the United fans are beautiful for doing that. Yeah. They will always head off if they don't win the game.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of sunshine fans out there, and you know what? Since they haven't been doing well, a lot of their true colours have come out.
Yeah, there's a little that's what is kind of disappointing. If you've won so many, I don't know how many Premier League titles you've won. It's 11 or whatever it is. Liverpool get their league title, but you're miserable because another team won it. To me, I don't look.
Yeah.
I prefer if Arsenal won it, obviously, but we're 12th or something. I don't even know where we are now. But yeah, it's I don't watch. I talked about this before. I don't know if it was on one of the live ones or the single ones that I did, but I don't follow as much anymore. And I suppose some people will probably think, well, that's because Arsenal are crap now, and that's probably part of it. But I suppose for me, I tried to wean myself away from it a bit, and because it's just. I just found, why am I getting annoyed about it,
Yeah, I know. I even found a friend of mine just said nothing's going to change in your life when they
there is that,
and you know what, it hasn't, but at least I can it's less of a bragging right that the lads have over you.
Really. Well, look, put it this way for Liverpool, you're 35 now, so you're a couple of years older, younger than me. But you've grew up with this like monkey on your back for all these years of Liverpool not having won the league. So of course you're going to feel a little bit of joy with that. Of course it's not going to change your life. I mean, you've got, which I'll go into. Like, you've got a daughter now.
Yeah.
She's, what age is she?
She is 15 months now. Yeah.
I give you a good one, right? I asked that question so people will know, but I knew the answer because when I sent you the message to ask if you wanted to come on last week, I think it was. the message before was, listen, I can't come in, maybe Wednesday. Can I come in Friday instead? And you said, no, that suits me fine. My daughter just arrived yesterday.
Oh yeah,
That's mad. So I was able to kind of date it back to it.
That, yeah.
How has life changed
It's
in
changed.
the household?
Yeah, life is very different. It's just even trying to get out of the house. Like if you have to go into town and you bring an Ada with you, it's just like, you're half an hour getting ready.
Yeah.
Comparing to before where you just, get up and you get out the door. But I mean, like, I know it sounds like a cliche, but like actually when you have a child, really that's all you care for in your life. And everything else really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I never really thought it'd be like that, but she has made me gone a bit soft.
But what then? Right. Okay. So, what kind of a father did you think you would be? Were you worried about becoming a father when your partner became pregnant?
No, I wasn't worried about it at all. I just kind of took it. I just took it as, I suppose I was a bit naive at the start and didn't realise how hard it was, and even on Arlene, I was probably a bit blind to how hard it was on her.
Yeah.
And I probably, because I was, working with the business, and not that my mind was focused on the business, I just thought Arlene had things under control at home, and like she did a lot of the time, but she wasn't sleeping, and and I should have been probably there more for her, but I was just dead set on, look, I have to work, I have to work, simple as that. Whereas, like I kind of look back on that now and I regret it, that I wasn't there more at the beginning. But look, you kind of live and learn. No one teaches you how to be the perfect father. You make your own mistakes and you try and learn from them, and then try not to make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the best decision you ever made.
Absolutely. Yeah. Geez, she's gas. Like honestly, just like she's hard work. Like it's just the sleeping is the hardest part.
Okay.
But during the day, she's honestly the best child, because she's just always laughing and messing. She's pure messer.
Yeah.
But, like at night time, she just doesn't settle.
Okay.
And it's hard to get her down in the evening. But once you get her down, then she's grand. But like I'll be able to do anything once I have a good night's sleep. But when you have a bad night's sleep, Jesus.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is tough.
Long days. I mean, I love asking new fathers like about fatherhood and what they thought it'd be like and what it actually is like. I have no kids myself, so I always find it interesting. And I know you say this a certain thing's a cliche, but like cliches are normally cliches for a reason. Not all of them, but most of them are. And even if the person gives me the same answer as the last person, it's always of interest to me, and it's always, you can tell people are happy by what they have now. Maybe not that they weren't happy beforehand, obviously, but like that little addition is like a big thing.
Absolutely.
Listen, Kieran, have you got any questions for me?
Yeah, I just actually, it was something that I never asked you before. It was just like about when like obviously you're it's well documented that you suffer from anxiety as well. So like, what are the feelings that you get, and what are your reactions to the feelings? So do you, when you start feeling anxious, do you self-isolate? Do you sit at home? Do you say, right, well, I'm not going to do anything until tomorrow I might feel better, and then I go out? Like, what's your approach to it?
I think I've gotten a lot better. I think the first part would have been flight all the time, and that would have just been whether I was in the shop or whether I was downstairs and I was anxious about something on the TV, I'd come upstairs. I think that was just every time it was that for the first 4 or 5 years, I would say. And then the little bit of fight came into me. I suppose it was the time I started going to Dublin to see my mum and being able to actually get up there, because I wouldn't go anywhere. So when I started going to Dublin, and then I started going to town, the city on my own, just for a wander around, and it was like awful, because the sensations like were just, this heaviness on my chest and the tingles in my arm, headache, sometimes dizziness as well, actually. But I think as I went along with those things, I realized that's a big thing going into the city, even for someone who isn't necessarily anxious, So for me, it was. Then I realized, like, well, I can go into Athlone, like into the town, or I can go into to you, or I can go into Start and Fusion and things like that. And I do think that 90% of the time it's fight now. But I think we all need, and I'm sure you'll agree, I think all of us need the flight to remain. It's that whole thing of That's why, you know, when there was predators after us when we were cavemen,
Exactly,
we
yeah.
needed that.
Mhm.
So I do know, I think I've gotten a lot better, and I do
Mhm.
know about when it's time to, maybe the fight will just ruin me for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Okay.
It's like that whole thing of, like you said, when you don't get a night's sleep and you're trying to function.
Mhm.
It can be like that. Now, you might sleep or whatever, but it's like you wake up and all of a sudden it's full on anxiety again.
Yeah.
Tiredness is a big part of it, because you've experienced anxiety too. So tiredness is one of those things that just, you know, it's there all the time in anxiety. So I do think that I've gotten a lot better at fighting it.
Mhm.
But I do think that me coming, doing the podcast, or even before the podcast, doing the blogs and telling people I have mental, you know, health issues and things like that, I think people have become very, very understanding that, look, if I can't go today, like I can't go, but like I'll try and go tomorrow, whatever it is that we're talking about. So sometimes even doing these interviews now, not today, but there was a couple of interviews where I was very nervous, and it wasn't because of the person coming over. It was just like, you know, I'm just not in the mood. I'm anxious. You know, it's not going to be good. You know, that whole disaster, catastrophizing thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answers. I think it's that whole thing of, I'm much better now at fighting it.
Yeah.
You know.
Again, like anxiety is actually another protective mechanism that we have. It's your body's, you know, way of trying to get you away from something.
Yeah.
You know, if you're public speaking and you know, you're not confident doing it, you know, you're basically telling your body that, you know, you don't feel safe up there. So your body's going to create a symptom to get you out of there.
Yeah.
You know, and anxiety is just a feeling of basically running away.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in your fight or flight. So, so I suppose it's just important to understand when it's coming on and trying to counteract that in some way if you can.
Yeah, if you can, like, look, read about it. You know, like, or talk to people who have experienced it. It's the best way. Like, it's. Don't go onto Facebook and try and find out. I told you you'd hit the mic stand. Everybody does it. No, you have to. You have to do it, or else it doesn't count. But you don't go onto Facebook or whatever. Go and seek out some actual. It doesn't have to be like we talked about earlier about academic studies of anxiety, but just read up about it. Read up about the symptoms of it. You know, people, performers talk about anxiety a lot, and they talk about they need it before they go on stage, or. And not just because some will say if they don't have anxiety, well, they've fallen out of love with whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think they need that as a drive to get on there and perform as best they can, you know. And not just performers, footballers, athletes, whatever.
Well, I mean, athletes in general. Like, I know it's a primitive, like the limbic system, and you know, in general, is a primitive part of the brain, that, you know, is used, you know, when we were running away from bears. But we do need that now. You know, you can't just stay in your, you know, parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest all the time, because you don't, like, in a game you don't want to be relaxed.
Yeah, exactly.
You need adrenaline, you need cortisol, you need noradrenaline pumping around the veins.
Yeah.
You know, or you won't be able to work at your peak level.
Yeah.
You know,
you won't find that, like, extra yard of pace, or all those things have to be there, and and the same goes for performers and things like that, I think. And it's such, anxiety is so huge, like, and you know, I don't know the numbers of, probably should know, I'm doing a mental health podcast, but I don't know what the numbers are for depression and the numbers are for anxiety, and sometimes they like, I have got the bipolar 2 and anxiety, and but sometimes it's just, like you talked about earlier, it's just anxiety. Sometimes it's just depression. I don't know what the numbers are, but I would imagine that there's a lot of people going through anxiety that they don't even know that it's anxiety, you know. And it's having an effect on their lives in many ways, you know, physical and mental.
Because every emotional thought, you have a physical reaction. You know, so like if you're anxious, your body's posture is going to adapt to that feeling. Versus if you're confident, you're going to look confident. People always know by looking at somebody whether they're confident. You know, Martin walks around with the shoulders back all the time.
That's fake.
That's fake. But like, he is a confident person.
He is,
You know, but you know somebody that, you know, is in, like, if you're sitting in an office, and you know somebody that's going to be shy and anxious because they're going to be curled over. They're going to be, you know, shying away from the world.
Yeah,
and, you know, that
they lose a few inches even
do,
when they walk, and Yeah, there's a lot of it. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Anything else actually you wanted to cover? Anything else that I might have missed?
No, not really. Just like, I suppose, if we're talking about pain in general, that, you know, like, obviously it's very complex, and you know, sleep plays a big part as well.
Yeah.
And if you have pain and you're not sleeping, if you lose at least 1 hour sleep at night and you suffer from pain, your pain can be amplified by, I don't know the exact statistics, but something around 25%. There's less of a filtering process going on in the brain.
Okay.
So the nerves that are sending up the information to the brain, there's less of a filtering process that goes on. So if you have a poor night's sleep, well, then your pain will be amplified as a result from that. And they've done studies over in California on that.
Yeah.
So that plays a part in it too.
And you talked to me about food before as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be an expert in the food side of things, but like, just in general, if you're not healthy and you're eating processed foods, but that I would be more looking at people that, you know, seeing what their lifestyles are like, at home.
Yeah.
You know, if they're eating crap all the time, and if they're isolating themselves all the time, again, they're all influences.
Yeah.
You know,
of course. Yeah.
It could be a tiny influence. But again, that's what we're after, just changing the influences. You change influencers, then the result, your body will produce less pain. Yeah.
Brilliant. If you're not sold on Kieran by now, I don't know what's wrong with you. Kieran, thanks very much for coming on. Really appreciate
Thanks for having me.
No, not at all. Anytime. If you want to come back and talk when your book is out.
Yeah, I definitely will.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, once the book is out, I definitely will.
Because then, I think what would be a good thing is if you bring the book out, I read the book, and then I'll be able to have some more questions. You know,
perfect. Yeah,
it's a good idea.
I'll sign a copy for you.
Oh yeah, you have to sign a copy for me. Yeah. So thanks to the usual people, John and his family, and Megan, to Ger, my mother, my father, and my grandfather. I always thank those people because I wouldn't be doing this podcast without them. Oh yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. The Wheatley. Facebook is the same. We'll put Kieran's information on that Wednesday or Thursday. Instagram is Wheatley, and Twitter is Wheatley_day. We're on the usual podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, etc. If you want an invite to Discord, the what's it called? Discord something. Very bad at these things. John needs to be here for these things. But anyway, yeah, Discord. If you want to invite to come on and have a chat with us on that, send me or John an invite, or message him. We'll send you an invite. Thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you very much, Kieran. It was a very interesting chat. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Cheers. And we will talk to you. I'll be doing some live stuff on Saturday, so tune in on Facebook. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.